Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Built by Reese YouTube video. Today we are going to be going over how you can build your very own home lab just like this one. So what I'm going to be going over is the basic hardware that you need to get started, how I found mine and how I got good deals on it, the storage that you need and kind of the amount that you want to choose, and the operating system that you want to run on it. Now, before we get started, I want to go over what a home lab actually is. Now, a home lab can mean a ton of different things. It can be anything from just an old laptop you have laying around to literal enterprise software you have in a server closet in your house. But to break it down, it's basically just some type of computer that is running 24/7 and is usually connected to the internet. And you can do things like have storage on it, run your own services, and different things like that. So now that I know what a home lab is, I wanted to go over kind of what I was looking for when starting my own home lab. So I wanted something that was relatively small because I knew I'd have to store it in my house, but still was capable of hosting the things that I wanted to. So it had to have a few SATA ports for things like hard drives and SSDs. I wanted it to be quiet and power efficient because I don't want something that has a super loud fan running all the time, especially if it's sitting in my bedroom or my living room. And lastly, I wanted something that was going to be cheap because I'm definitely still on a budget with everything that I do. And now I wanted to go over some of the things that I use my home lab for. So if you're thinking about building one but didn't really know if you would actually use it or the different things that it can do, I wanted to kind of give you guys examples of what I use it for. So the most important thing that I use it for is a NAS or a network attached storage. So this is basically just the hard drives on the computer I can access at any time from my network or depending on how you set it up from anywhere. And so this allows me to back up all my stuff, have extra storage when I need it and don't have to store things like on my laptop. The next thing that I run is a media server. So I use Jellyfin. And I had a bunch of old home videos that were on different CDs and different SSDs and different things. So I consolidated all of that onto my Jellyfin server. And so this allows me to watch the home videos on my TV or on my phone whenever I want to. And it also allows for family members to have their own accounts and watch the videos as well. You can also use this for things like movies and different things like that, but that can get into a little bit of a legality sketchy area depending on how you feel about that. And lastly, one of my favorite parts about this home server is Docker containers and self-hosting. So I self-host different things like Jellyfin, and then I also use it for N8N. And then I can also self-host things like my website and different web apps that I develop. So I can use that rather than having to use cloud-based services that I have to pay for to host my website or other applications that I want to put out there. Okay, so now let's get into the building aspect. So we're going to be talking about what you actually need, the basics, and what I have here in my personal home lab. So at the most basic level, what you need is a computer that has a motherboard with a CPU and RAM. You need some type of storage like hard drives. You can have an SSD if you want faster storage for things like cache or your different applications. You may need a flash drive to host your operating system, and then you have to pick an operating system itself. So my personal shopping list when going into this was a small-ish computer that was quiet and power efficient, but also had multiple SATA ports to connect hard drives to since I wanted to use this as a NAS. I needed hard drives themselves. I also wanted the SSD for faster storage transfer and also to host applications. And then I needed a reliable flash drive to host my operating system. Once I knew what I needed, I started looking for good deals. And like everything else, when I'm looking for good deals, the first thing I did was go on eBay and look for some used parts. And the first thing that I found was this HP ProDesk 600 G2 SFF or small form factor. Now I'll list out the specs here of what this computer has, but what you need to know more importantly is that it came with no hard drives and no operating system. Now you might see this as a downside because you have to buy those separately, but I actually think this is a good thing if you're on a serious budget. This allows you to go on and find exactly what you need and even better deals on those specific components themselves rather than trying to find a kind of one-size-fits-all solution. Now, if we're looking for something for yourself, I recommend kind of looking for any kind of different old office PCs like this one. Some things I've written down are like Dell Optiplex, HP ProDesk or Elite Desks, or Lenovo ThinkCenters. Now, the next thing I needed was storage. Now, I did build this system earlier this year in January, so the storage prices were kind of just starting to go up, but I know that they've gone up even more since then, so keep that in mind. So for my budget, I decided that I was going to get two 2 terabyte hard drives. So this would allow me to have 2 terabytes of storage and have another 2 terabyte drive for parity. Now you need this because you want your stuff to be backed up. If one of these used hard drives fail, you want to have your stuff backed up on another hard drive so that you don't lose everything. So I ended up finding these two for $28.50 each, which was a pretty good deal. However, keep in mind that buying used hard drives is risky. You can have them send over the smart data or different information about them that kind of tells you how long they've been running and different things like that. But at the end of the day, you really never know exactly what they were used for and how much life they have left. So that's why it's even more important to make sure you have some kind of parity or backup for these drives. Now the next thing on my list was a small SSD. Now I wanted an SSD personally to use for things like caching, and then also I knew that I was going to be hosting some applications and web services and stuff like that. So I didn't want to have those be stored on my slower hard drives all the time. So I needed an SSD to run things like that. Now, what I mean by caching on this SSD, so say if you were transferring some large files from your laptop onto your home server, you can use the SSD as a caching drive, which means that those files go to that first because it has faster write speeds, and then later on, at some point, it will move those from the SSD over to your hard drive for a more long-term storage. So if you're going to be transferring a lot of files or larger files kind of frequently, it's definitely a good idea to have some sort of caching drive that is faster than your normal hard drive. Now you definitely don't need a SSD for your home server, but it's definitely a nice to have, and they're usually not too expensive. I got this 128 gigabyte one for just under $20. The last piece of hardware that I needed was a reliable USB flash drive. Now I knew that I was going to be running Unraid as my operating system, and Unraid is best run on a flash drive rather than trying to run it on one of the internal drives. So I knew that I was going to have this as part of my shopping list as well. Now, when looking into this, there was kind of a ton of different information about what your best option is. Some people said using old drives you have laying around the house that are USB 2.0 is better because they don't have all this technology that can fail. Some people recommended buying a super fancy flash drive so that you know it wouldn't fail. What I ended up doing was just kind of meeting that in the middle. I bought one of the Samsung bar flash drives off Amazon for about $30. This is what I think to be very reliable and very sturdy, and kind of what I figured my best option was. Now, the last thing I did was choose my operating system. Now, this is definitely something that can vary a lot depending on what your specific use cases are. If you want more information on that, I suggest kind of doing your own research. I'm not going to go over that a ton in this video. What I chose was Unraid because it seemed like it was going to be one of the easier ones for kind of my first ever try at this. It was simple, it had a lot of support, a lot of documentation and YouTube videos already on how to do certain things, which was very important to me. It is paid at $50 for 1 year of updates, which isn't ideal if you don't know if you're gonna like it. So there are definitely a lot of free options out there as well if that's what you'd rather do. But this is kind of the one I chose, and I'm definitely happy with the decision. I've been running Unraid for about 9 months now on my home lab, and I have no regrets at all. So to wrap it up, that's basically how I built my home lab on a budget. You don't need $1,000 computers or server racks or kind of any of that stuff to just get started. All you need is some kind of old PC and an interest in doing it. If you want kind of a more in-depth review on how to put all these components together, how to set everything up, and how to kind of set up Unraid or your operating system for the first time, let me know in the comments and I can go over that stuff in a future video. And if you're watching this and you already have your own home lab, please put in the comments what you use it for so I and other people watching this video can see, because it's always fun to learn new things and add more things to your home lab once you have it started. So yeah, that basically wraps up how I built my own first home lab and some kind of tips and tricks on how to build your first home lab, what you actually need, and where to find some good deals on it. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.